All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's 4 o'clock or a little after. This is the Paul Harrell program. We got a great show for you. We're going to be, as always, joined by my excellent co-host, Rob Spencer. We got another person in seat number 3 today. We've got the mayor of Fairfield Bay, Arkansas, 25-year-old mayor Seth Connell is with us. We're going to talk about really everything we can think of, but specifically we're going to talk about the latest revelations. Tulsi Gabbard taking over the White House press briefing in spectacular fashion. Will anyone actually be held accountable? I wouldn't hold my breath, but hey, we can be black pill bulimic together. We don't want to swallow the black pill. We want to regurgitate it. The Paul Harrell program starts right now.
The Paul Harrell program.
All right, folks, welcome. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Rob Spencer. Rob, take it away, sir.
Paul, it is an honor to be here, as always. Thankful to be in the co-host chair. Follow us on X America News at Rob Spencer 43 at Paul Talk Show. That's our main new Twitter account. Paul will mention that later. And then at Real Paul Harrell if you want to follow us. So anyway, of course, the big news of the day is that Tulsi Gabbard went in with a blowtorch to the press briefing, took over. Our beloved fair and balanced CNN cuts away. We're going to talk about that over the course of this hour. Really looking forward to talking some local Arkansas stuff with the mayor of Fairfield Bay, Seth here. He's just met him before the show started, and looking forward to hearing more about that. And that is a fantastic vacation spot if anybody is
yeah,
looking.
No, that's what I've heard.
It's going to be fun to talk about.
Well, let's hear from the man himself. He's probably the youngest mayor in America.
Well, look, let me tell you. So just want to say, how goes it, guys? Isn't it interesting that if you look, can you believe that we're actually not getting shadow banned on the internet as much as we used to?
Oh,
Isn't
my
that
gosh.
great? I mean,
before Elon Musk.
in the last few years, you look at it, you're like, wow. Facebook looks like a completely different place, but it's gotten better. I have watched your program, Paul. Got to admit, it's been really interesting when I found out we'd be able to drive all the way down here.
Or up here.
Is it up?
Up
Or
here.
over?
Yeah,
It's
up
over
here.
here.
Yeah, it's
more,
north.
right?
It's over and
It's
up.
north, over and up.
Northeast.
And we stopped at a gas station. At least I did. And I didn't know that you'll have like these truck stops. They're so fancy up
Oh,
there.
yeah.
You got like the
Oh,
catfish. That's right.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting about what's happened here in Fairfield Bay is that, I more or less took this job just because I've lived in Fairfield Bay for over 25 years, my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
They've said I was essentially one of the only natives from Fairfield Bay. And when they brought me in, it's an interesting story. It's like they basically said, Seth, we want you to promote Fairfield Bay as much as you could. And I didn't really see myself getting into politics. But when you see a community that needs help and you need people to unify together, it becomes a heck of a lot easier. So
what is Fairfield Bay? Just give, if people that are listening outside of the area, talk about what makes you unique.
So we have over, I think we have about 2,200 people that live in Fairfield Bay,
So
full-time residents.
small community.
But it carries its weight. So we have 2 golf courses, one putt-putt golf, and we also have a bowling alley. We have a lake, Greers Ferry Lake. It's one of the 5th cleanest lakes in America. And so huge fishing, people come up. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out a way to put Fairfield Bay on the map. And that really just is a question of getting people to come in, because Fairfield Bay is in a unique position. You're not going to Fairfield Bay on your way anywhere. Maybe if you're going to Branson through like the Conway area, you might move over 45 minutes and stay in Fairfield Bay. And, Paul, if you pull it up on the website, you can see basically all that Fairfield Bay has to offer.
There's the lake view.
Yeah,
Greers Ferry is a state treasure.
It's a gorgeous lake. My father-in-law owns a lake house on it's on Greers Ferry Lake, and we go there every year. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so y'all fish?
Oh yeah. When I can't.
Okay.
When I'm not trying to get a podcast off the ground. Yeah.
So I have I found that the easiest and cheapest form of therapy is to go out on the Greers Ferry Lake, and I got my fishing license about 2-3 weeks ago. and I have been out there almost every other day.
You're obsessed with fishing.
I'm obsessed.
Yes.
I didn't. You don't know you need it until you need it.
Just a great stress relief.
Yeah.
Life, I'm told that life slows down when you're fishing.
Yeah.
Your brain, all of the chaos that goes on in your head, it slows down considerably when you are fishing.
But
I am not much of a fisherman, but I have nothing against it. I love catfish.
But the phone keeps ringing.
Yes.
So that's the deal. And it's good to have meetings. So I just got a fishing boat, and I'm going to name it City Business. So that way when I'm out there, it gets
Hey guys, I'm on city business right now.
City business, baby. Come on now.
So, what's really interesting about Fairfield Bay right now is that we're a centralized hub. So I found out this a couple days ago. So Fairfield Bay was actually the original location that people held their governor's conference, and people would come in and stay at the resort locations. We have a lot of condos in Fairfield Bay. Like I said, we have a bowling alley, a lot of outdoor recreation, walking trails. And what's unique about Fairfield Bay is that it has a very different form of government. It's more like Hot Springs. So we have a community club, which is kind of a private business, and then we have a city council. So the city council exists and works to get grants essentially for the community club. The community club came first. In the history of Fairfield Bay, it really got started in the 1960s as basically like this business development project by guys who wanted to set up like just a resort location. And it slowly grew from there. And what has happened in our community is that, I think you know this, social media has made politics so much more divisive than it ever was.
Way more polarizing.
And if you have a community where he said, she said, it just gets out of control. And the good news is that the same way it can be toxic, it also can be unifying. And we're experiencing the unifying part of that. But I'm 25 years old, and I'm mayor of a retirement community. So the average number, and it tells you a little bit about me. I always say I grew up on John Wayne and Jesus Christ, know. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to basically emphasize the fact that this is a great, affordable getaway location. We have condos. People can stay. They have a hotel, 6-story hotel, 60-something plus rooms. And we have a conference center. We're getting conferences there. And anyone who has the ability or wants to have some getaway project where they meet up with employees or whatever, have a conference, you can contact us and we'll get you set up. So
we're located here in Jonesboro, Arkansas, which is northeast Arkansas. And, I mean, of course, we've got these little small Lake Frierson, these little small lakes that just don't really even count as a lake when you talk about Greer's Ferry or Lake Norfolk or something like that. And so what people here in northeast Arkansas, they're going to the lake, and it's basically which lake are they choosing?
Yep.
And it's
exactly
always around there. And so because if you want to go to the beach, it's 9 hours away, right? Or you can go to the lake, and it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on where you're at here in northeast Arkansas. And so there is an appeal to slowing life down and going and spending some time on the lake and fishing, as you were talking about, and just relaxing.
So I have a question. So I don't really know much about how Jonesboro operates. So how does your economy operate? Like, where's the biggest source of?
Oh, well, you'd have to say hospitals and the university.
Yeah, Arkansas State University. We've also got just several big industries such as Frito-Lay is here. I mentioned this yesterday on the show. That we're one of the few Frito-Lay factories that actually make chips. So there's distribution. Frito-Lays, and one of my dear friends works at Frito-Lay, so he kind of keeps me up on all this stuff. We've got a Post plant. We've got a Butterball,
Nestle.
We've got that.
What's interesting about that is, so there is also, in terms of there's good jobs, from an industrial standpoint, there is that industrial park out there. But what's fascinating is in Jonesboro, we have successfully over the last 10 years or so. Effectively beat back proposed tax increases. This has happened repeatedly. And I think one of the last ones that was defeated, we got an editorial from the head guy at the local newspaper at the time, I don't think he's there anymore, lamenting the industrial jobs here wanting tech jobs that would pay higher so that those types of people would have the evolved sensibilities to vote for tax increases. But they were upset that, the $50,000, $60,000 a year job at a factory, those types of people are not going to vote for tax increases. And I just thought, man, like what a mask off moment that was about how people will think about.
He said the quiet part out loud.
He said the quiet part out loud.
So
Exactly.
what's interesting about that? So when we have Fairfield Bay, what's unique about it is the fact that in 2020, if you look at what happened during COVID lockdowns, we actually saw tourism go up. And so we're in a unique position where people were leaving other places and they were coming to our city. And the reason they did that was because we have, over the last 10 years, when I was growing up, internet was it was hard to get fast internet speeds. So people were moving other places and other locations to work remotely. Now they can come to a place like Fairfield Bay where you can get houses much cheaper than you can get it somewhere else. And they're working with high speed, fiber optic lines. And that was a game changer for us. We're having a lot of remote workers. I mean, I work on the computer remotely from home sometimes. And it's just, once you see that, you don't understand how other communities may not have those internet speeds.
Yeah. What was really interesting, too, just kind of as an aside, made me think about when you brought up COVID, was the the boat sales that increased.
Couldn't find them.
The price of a boat went nuts. So everybody talks about cars. It went nuts with boats. You couldn't find them anywhere. And it was because that was one of the last unrestricted recreational activities, like beaches were shut down, but you can still go to the lake. And
thanks, Fauci.
Thanks, Fauci. And so that happened. One thing I forgot to mention was I would say the biggest money maker here in Northeast Arkansas is quite the opposite, it seems, of say a boat life and slowing down in the fishing life, and that is the steel mills. Because of Mississippi County, there is, with just the proximity to the Mississippi River and all of that, the amount of money that is with the steel mills in Northeast Arkansas is incredible, and it has a big impact on, I would say, on politics, because you've got these industries here that love the low taxes that we enjoy here in our state, and we're seeing just I guess was it last year or the year before they released the study that we were the top or the number 2 moved to state per capita here in the United States.
Do y'all have ATV trails?
This is kind of the delta here, so we got a little bit. There's a push to get more, but
Well, and that's one of the things that we have already is we have the ability for people to ride their side-by-sides around Fairfield Bay. And if you look at the cultural shift that's happened, so when I was growing up, I would see a lot of people riding golf carts down the street, older people that were coming off the golf course. Now it's ATVs, the side-by-sides, they're taking over, and it's really good for our tourism. That's what we have.
Sure.
I was at the Municipal League meeting in Little Rock, and I had a mayor of one of the cities walk up to me and said, Seth, we wish we had what you have in terms of resources and all that. And so, I keep saying that, Fairfield Bay is like this weird diamond in the rough. It's a retirement community. And so as a result, like I said, I'm probably the only native of Fairfield Bay. So most of them are transplants. And so when you have that happen, it's very easy for people to not understand how the system really works and how it's meant to work. But it's a successful system. It's been around, like I said, it was for the governor's conference a few years ago. And so what we're trying to do is, you can imagine what it's like being 25 and just kind of, what happened was they appointed me and they kind of threw me in the office and closed the door and ran away. They were like, here you go, Seth, you're on your own. Good luck. And it was an interesting experience. But the good news is that I think it's like you said, people were looking for that freedom during COVID. And that's why they started finding places like Fairfield Bay. I was going to bring it in with me. I just got a letter from the state of Arkansas officially notifying me that my house has doubled in value in 5 years.
Well, there you go.
I'm telling you.
What a nice surprise.
What a thing.
So I congratulations, by the way. I think it's incredible. But you got to be one of the youngest mayors in America. And so I would wonder. Well, let me just ask this: how does that affect your dating life? Are you
brother.
worried that women are only going to want you for your political power?
Well,
and not get to know the real Seth Connor?
Well, look, and I knew that question was coming. So I'll tell you this: it's a good excuse to keep everyone at arm's distance. Okay, that's a great part of this job, but it's amazing how much title will impact people's perception of you. You know, their entire narrative changes. It's not based on pretty much what you say, but the title behind it. It's sad, but it's true. But you know, moving on beyond that, that's not why I took the role. It wasn't for the title power.
Well, of course not.
It really, I mean, it wasn't for the pay. So they actually axed the pay right before I got in. Can you believe it? They're like, they say we got this young guy, but you know, one of the youngest mayors actually is from Earl, Arkansas. Something Smith.
I do not know.
He's running for state rep. You can look that up.
Okay.
And so I probably will be one of the youngest mayors in Arkansas once he runs for state rep. But
okay, well, that's going to be interesting.
I'm not done with the dating, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, into that vein, in that vein a little bit, I did talk to. I've talked to this guy, and he serves on the ministry team at a church, and he said, you know, he's like, when people will find out that I'm like the worship leader at church, all they want to talk to me about is you know, religion and all that stuff, and he's like, look, that's the number one thing in my life, but I also like football, you know. I also am interested in political events that happen, you know, and things of that nature or whatever. And so, to your point about the title thing, you know, Harvey's like, "Oh, you're mayor. Hey, listen, I got some potholes. There's some potholes down here."
I have to admit, though, it's not as bad as you think. A lot of people have been very gracious with me in the way that they've handled. They haven't just bombarded me with too many problems. But at the end of the day, the good news is that we have such a good team. So, for instance, you don't have to micromanage people. We haven't really had to micromanage anyone. The fire department, that we have just great people over there, the police department. Everyone knows what to do. I think the key part is not stirring the pot too much. But when it goes back to, you know, the theology, that's interesting. Once I took this position, in the last few months, I think I've kind of gone through a rebirth in my own personal life as far as accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and that's
amazing.
If you go through having that kind of pressure, it's not normal, and you realize that you're basically relying on something else.
I was about to sneeze. I was like, please forgive me.
Okay, no worries. Oh, man. But again, that just kind of goes back to, like you said, theology is baked in everything. You know, I saw you post on Twitter recently that politics is downstream of theology.
Yeah.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. No, it 100%.
Well, it shapes ultimately how you feel about things, and so of course, you know, when you talk about, you know, your religion and your faith and what, like, who more aligns with that faith, you know, because let's be honest, there are Democrats who are Christians who go to church every Sunday and feel as if they are aligned with the teachings of Jesus Christ, and there are Republicans who go to church every Sunday and feel as if they are aligned with the teachings of Jesus Christ. One of us is wrong.
That's right.
You know,
I'm glad that you said that. Yeah, I would agree. One of us is wrong.
Right. And so I'm going to tell you how I feel and how it affects my life. I am far from perfect. I am the most imperfect person that I know, as a matter of fact.
Just to add to that, you know, I was reading the second inaugural address of Abraham Lincoln, and he basically said in it, you know, he said, we've just come to the end of the Civil War. And he said, we both prayed to God, but only one of us could be correct. And that was the end of the Civil War. It's just like, you know, theology is usually behind everything. They're all praying, but someone's going to be wrong. It doesn't matter really at the end who wins, but God gets the glory. But, you know, I've read a lot, and I thought I knew a lot more before I took this position than I really did, but it's a humbling experience. because you realize you don't have to all the answers, and that's why it says, "Lean not on thy own understanding." But
well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because over the last 2 years, I've really dived into this idea of the responsibility of politicians. When it comes to, well, really just being honestly, the Westminster Confession of Faith talks about them being nursing fathers to the church, as a matter of fact. And just the responsibility, I think libertarianism, one of the big flaws with libertarianism is the fact that if you take it to its ultimate conclusions, you experience what I think the majority of the country rejected in 2024, which was, hey, look, like, we can't trans children and call it health care.
Right.
Okay, we can't say, and that's a product of libertarianism. It's also a product of, it's okay for this mom or dad to take their kid to a drag show made for kids that's going to attract people that are trying to sexualize them. Like, I think banning things is good sometimes, right? And I think that's where that's how my political philosophy has changed, certainly over the last 5 years, is if you are a Christian and you get elected to public office, you should be a Christian in public office. That's what many politicians now run on. They campaign on that. So be a Christian dog catcher, be a Christian state representative. Christians cannot be afraid of political power. Like, we have to be hands off and allow a Baphomet statue to be erected in the Iowa State Capitol.
I just want to say this. A lot of people say that religion's to stay out of politics, and I'm very happy that John the Baptist didn't believe that when he called out, the king's wife.
That's exactly
and
right.
he lost his head for it. And that's just, again, if you can't be grounded in your faith, then what do you have? You don't have anything. And so, so Louis Pasteur, he had an interesting quote, and he said, "A little science will take you away from God, but a lot of science will bring you to him." And to me, that's basically what happened. So a few years ago, in 2017, actually a little bit before that, I started reading these books. I set out on a goal to be a student and understand how the world worked. And after about 500 to 600 books, I can tell you, initially my faith was challenged, but you start reading, and too much of this stuff makes sense. It makes sense through theological, frameworks that have existed for hundreds of years. It's what America was based on. You read about the Enlightenment, 1720s. I've been every night listening to these sermons by George Whitefield. I mean, I've never heard of anyone do that.
The Great Awakening.
The Great Awakening. So George Whitefield, it's an interesting story. 1720, he started having these sermons out in the fields, and he drew crowds to 20 to 30,000. Benjamin Franklin didn't believe it. He had to come and see it for himself. He said, "Wow, there's 30,000 people at these events." He actually died while he was giving a sermon because he wouldn't stop, even though it was cold. Fast forward, 40 years, Benedict Arnold and the original founding fathers dug up his tomb and cut pieces of their clothing and put it in their pockets because they wanted to have mementos of him as they went off to stand up against King George. I mean, you have a very
It didn't
rich...
work out too well for Benedict Arnold.
Well, we won't talk about that, but,
but also too, everybody feels as if, they are on the right side of God, we've even talked about this, like, if you interpret what was on the insignia on the Germans' soldiers' belts. Did you ever see that? There was a German phrase that said, "God is with us."
Again, that's also one of the things that's interesting. I was reading in the Bible, it talks about how do you tell if someone's a false prophet? And it says what they say won't come to pass, and if it doesn't come to pass, they weren't guided by the Holy Spirit. Wow. Wow. I mean, that's... And you see that a lot every day. There's just a lot of false teachings, and it all goes to that same Christian, framework. Now, again, you can't discriminate. You can't discriminate against people that just based on arbitrary beliefs and put a line next to their name. But you can always try to use your position to do as Christ would do. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think what I guess kind of back to what I kind of realized over the last 5 years is, separation of church and state is not the same thing as separating the religion and state. The idea that we don't all agree on the Christian religion. America was a, and I know there are people that don't, but the idea of a pan-Protestant civilization, that's what this was, right? And anyway, it's but I'm really encouraged. That's really incredible, Seth Connell, that this position is also kind of also excited in you, like a hunger, a thirst, to want to know more about the truth of God.
And I'm going to jump in there. The separation of church and state is a mischaracterization of a letter written by Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
it's not in the Constitution.
And it's not even it makes no sense. You had John Quincy Adams, who was with other founding fathers using the capital of for church.
For church, yeah.
I mean, that's a little on the nose, don't you think?
Yeah, and then so the Supreme Court totally reinterprets everything and has destroyed our civilization. It's these court injunctions. So I mean, I'll one up you, right? I mean, in the Constitution, the Constitution is a distinctly Christian document. Its one fatal flaw is it doesn't specifically recognize the lordship of Jesus Christ and that we owe him our allegiance.
It just calls him the creator.
The Declaration calls him the creator, but the one what you can point to in the document, it's kind of secondary or tertiary even, is that when a piece of legislation goes to the president's desk, he has a certain amount of time to veto it or sign it, and then it can become, like Congress has other action, or it becomes law. Like he has a certain amount of time to veto it. He's got the clock starts ticking when it gets on his desk. But Sundays, a specifically Christian weekly holiday, essentially, Sundays do not count against him in the however many days he has. That fact alone flies in the face of the Supreme Court's interpretation in the mid 20th century that somehow that you can't endorse a religion.
Right.
You absolutely can. It is endorsed in the Constitution. The specifics there is Congress shall make no law. So unless Congress is prohibited from saying this is our state religion, that's it. That's the limitation. That's the point.
Again, I'm going to jump right in there. So you have, the IRS just announced it's okay to make political endorsements for churches.
Or that churches can
churches can make and the reason that I was always shocked that they couldn't, and when separation of church and state was initially even recognized, what they were saying was that the government shouldn't get involved in the affairs of the church, not that churches shouldn't get involved in the affairs of the government. That's just
right.
It's just not what it meant. You've got over 70% of people in America are Christian.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the idea that you're not going to have especially but going back to the time when more people were in church, right? You go worship the Lord one day out of 7. The other 6 days, you go out and you work, and you are a dog catcher, or you are a blacksmith, or you are a representative, or a delegate, or a senator. Or, so obviously they're going to pass laws that don't. They're supposed to pass laws that don't flout what is clearly revealed in Scripture. That you shouldn't do.
So,
but we've done that, by the way.
And this goes back to, I was reading Plymouth Plantation by William Bradford. And you read about the Pilgrims and the Puritan movement and why they decided to break away from the Church of England. And what really happens is that although they had disagreements, and it really led to the Pilgrims coming to America to colonize, a lot of people don't know this, but did you know that William Bradford's Plymouth Plantation manuscript actually disappeared for over 50 years? Guess where they found it?
Oh, no.
In the library of a bishop of the Church of England, preserved, and we probably wouldn't have it otherwise. And so I think that goes back to God works in mysterious ways, but at the end of the day, it's all about going out and exploring and building, and that just, it all connects.
Yeah,
right.
It all connects.
Can I ask you another question? And I hate to interrupt. Rob, you have something to add to that, by the way.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so real quick, I don't want to put you on the spot about the dating thing, but you're a Zoomer. You're 25 years old. I'm barely a millennial. Rob, are you a millennial?
I am 45. So
are you Gen X?
I am. They try to call us Xennials, but we're not. I'm Gen X. Okay, so I'm by 2 months.
Okay, by 2 months you're Gen X. Okay, I'm a millennial, but I hate being a millennial because I don't have any in common with those people. A lot of those people that were born after me, because while I was born in I was born in '84. And maybe it's because I had older sisters. Like, I had a Walkman. I had analog technology. We didn't have internet. I also then had a Discman. I actually got to see technology go from analog to digital. And there's a lot of millennials that saw that, and there's a lot of other millennials that didn't see that. And so they that to me is a huge distinction.
And so I think that's also why millennials are more likely to be like these weird virtue signalers. And it's because they saw the internet beforehand. And when they saw the internet come in, they're like, wait, that's not the way things are supposed to be. You're always supposed to. And it creates this weird balancing act.
Yeah.
But it goes back to your point, with Zoomers, my generation. It's interesting to see they're more interested in religious liberty, a lot more religiously affiliated than ever.
They're going back to church.
They're going back to church,
especially the men more so than women. Which, by the way, I just think is incredible. And I think anytime the men start going back to church in larger numbers than the women, what happened when what happened? 1720s.
Great awakening.
And then what happens? Mm-hmm. War, revolution.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Like we're gonna set something right that needs to be set right. So we really don't need to black pill. There's incredible things potentially in the future.
Sure. Look at how young the founding fathers were. There's a reason that they were inspired by this great awakening and religious movement that came early in it, because the young people decide to stand up. And I'm not saying that I'm going to be the person to change the world, but it takes a whole lot of people, right?
Yeah.
E pluribus unum, out of many one. Mm-hmm. But that's been the biggest takeaway from my position here. But let me kind of diverge a little bit from this. So I came from a weird background. I used to write political news for some brands that no one's heard of. I did write for Bongino Report, Dan Bongino, who's now the deputy director of the FBI. Obviously, we know that. And it was interesting to me to see what was happening in Fairfield Bay. And I realized that because people don't know how social media feeds our the worst of ourselves, that we need someone to just balance that a little bit and say, you know what, we're actually going to use these tools for good and not stirring the pot. And it ended up working out. But for the most part, I was more interested, and I was like, before we started this, we were talking about like the 2008 financial crisis. And we were talking about, monetary policy. All of these things connect. And so, as a mayor, you have to understand that you cannot try to understand housing prices unless you understand the Federal Reserve, unless you understand the interest rates, you understand what's going on nationally. If you do not have a mental framework for how that works, you can't figure out anything else. And so that's what I'm trying to do. To me, this is the largest case study in my life to see if we can try to help the community of Fairfield Bay by bringing all these things together that you learn about. And that's what I'm trying to do.
It's pretty incredible. We're talking with Seth Connell again. He's the mayor of Fairfield Bay, Arkansas. The question that I had for you is, there is a movement out there among the Zoomers, specifically with your generation. There's a movement out there among the Zoomers where they're giving up on dating because they don't trust a couple of things. The feminization is the issue. They don't trust women. And I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this movement, but this is a phenomenon that's happening, so we have to talk about it. Like, I don't think it's good for men to be married, but there's people saying that the candidate pool of women right now is just so corrupted with feminism, and so people are waiting to get married. They're not even socializing, and then you have the whole other side, is if you do choose to get married and you have kids. And then the feminized culture kind of takes over, and then she leaves you. Family court is a completely different court, where it's not like civil or criminal. It's a complete offshoot of its own. As a matter of fact, like, I didn't realize this, but I talked to Jeff Younger. Jeff Younger is a man whose son was basically kidnapped by his wife. The Texas Supreme Court let it happen. Took him to California and is now transing him, right? And there's been multiple court battles over this case. But one of the things he told me was, when you get in like a custody dispute, and we're talking about child support payments, there's a program where the state gets reimbursed.
Financial incentive.
Financial incentive. So you may have a mom who is not fit to be the mother, but doesn't have as high-paying job, not fit to have the custody, but doesn't have as high-paying job as the dad, and the dad needs to have custody, but there's an incentive to give the children to the mom because the state will get more money because the dad has the higher salary. And so I saw all that to say, because it's a lot more nuanced than even that, but this has given rise to the Zoomers checking out on dating. So I didn't know if you are familiar with this phenomenon.
Let me jump in, and on behalf of Zoomers, there's a lot of good girls out there, okay? And again, this goes back to social media has emphasized the negative, and we need to accentuate the positive a little bit more. It's like go out and touch grass. Go out and talk to real people. There's good people out there, and I haven't foregone anything as far as that goes. It's just you have to be more careful.
Well, there are I will say that there are tons of women out there that don't have this ultra high body count because they've gone out partying all of their 20s, and they have whatever virtuous qualities they may have been instilled through their parent, their upbringing and all of that stuff, totally lost in college, and they went wild and all of this stuff, and then they got indoctrinated with like a sort of a feminist move. There's been so many, there's tons of videos on TikTok where there's these liberal women, I'm going to call it, that's exactly what it is, these liberal women saying, hey, how do I find a less liberal man who's not a conservative? Because what they want is a conservative man. So that's what they want, but they can't bring themselves to date a conservative man. So they want a liberal man or a less liberal man who's basically more manly.
It's like a unicorn.
The more egalitarian a society, the less egalitarian the women become. And that is a study they did recently. I can't remember who did that. They discovered that basically the more equal you make the pay across women and men, the more overachievers that women go after. And I guess it's a mixture of like natural selection mixed in with a lot of social bias, but that's just the way it is. I don't know how we respond to that in this world, but the system is like the self-perpetuating system, that. And so right now, for the first time ever, I think that women own more houses than men in America.
Wow.
I mean, there's something there, and you can't ignore that anymore.
Well, speaking as someone who's in real estate, though, I can tell you this, that, a lot of times those numbers may be skewed a little bit to the perspective of, you have a husband and a wife, assuming a heterosexual relationship, you may have a husband and a wife, and the husband is not on the loan due to a lower credit score. And so you may have, where the wife is on there. Now, I don't know that that's always that is really the case there, because it seems as if when men are single, they typically will roommate up, they're buddy versus maybe someone who is, maybe a female who is, buying their own home. They've got a career, all of those things.
You also have to talk about what Tucker Carlson's talked about all the time, is that women really don't want to marry a man that makes less than them. And if you look at when you asked earlier, what are the key industries, that kind of make Northeast Arkansas work? I said the university, and I said hospitals, healthcare. Those jobs are primarily for women. And they're good paying jobs.
Yes.
And so there is and Tucker was talking about this the other day with Charlie Kirk, that there really is a crisis right now of and it's not because Zoomers aren't working hard like a lot of the boomers might want to say. There really is a vast difference there's an economic wasteland right now for this generation and in millennial circles, and even in Gen Xer, if you look at some of this data. And the hope is that, with the tariffs fundamentally to me look like an attempt to totally revolutionize how we fund the government. And I hope it's successful, because we have a generation of men that need good jobs. They need good jobs.
And so you have to understand, and this is what I was talking about, Rob, before you got here with Paul. It's like, I was watching a documentary on the 2008 financial crisis, and you have Henry Paulson, and then you have Alan Greenspan was sitting there talking about how they decided to bail out some banks but not others. And you have Bear Stearns that went under. You have Lehman Brothers that went under. And the excuse that they gave for why they did not bail out certain banks as opposed to other banks was they said, well, we didn't want to create moral hazard. And I'm like, I believed that 10 years ago. I said, oh, yes, the Federal Reserve, they wanted to be the good guys. They had character. No, they didn't. They wanted to centralize the banks. So what we're seeing now is that we're seeing an economic cause to a lot of these sociological phenomenons. I really do believe that. And I don't think it's a question of, the greedy bankers. I don't think it's a question of, those evil companies are trying to poison our water. I think it's just the age-old problem, greed.
Yeah.
Greed, yeah.
It's leading to all of the things you're seeing. You have this.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
it's as simple as greed. I actually, I mean, why? Yeah, why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't that be it? I mean, that's right. That's clearly a sin in the Bible. It's actually good to put it in theological categories.
Yeah.
Like let's figure exactly what is this. We do have a greed problem.
Well,
I would agree with that.
My buddy Jack is watching the show right now, and he just texted me. And Jack is a libertarian, and we were talking about libertarians.
Well, that's okay. Yeah. I like a lot of stuff.
Sure. I mean, I agree with a lot that libertarians say.
I have
but
more in common with a libertarian than a Democrat.
Well, for sure. But ultimately, and I've always kind of worried that, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. Being the rallying cry of a libertarian is let what's going to happen, but leave me alone. I don't care. I don't want to interject in all of this stuff. But ultimately what it does is it is down to, I am the master of my own world. I am the master of my own life. It is all about me. Sometimes, especially when you take in people like Jack, who will say this to his face, it's all about Jack. Right, and Jack is about Jack, right? And I'm purposely taking a shot at him on air here.
Can you record when you go into the office tomorrow? I'd like for you to record.
Well, he's in our group. He's in our company group text message right now because he's the other owner right here, and so all of our agents are reading his words right now. So I'm purposefully trying to take a shot at him. But what I'm trying to say is, the conservative view is more of less government control. Let's get this stuff down, which aligns with libertarians. Libertarians are like, hey, look, we need to be smaller on this government, but also realizing that some things, if left to their own accord, are of Satan, of the devil, that they are not godly, and we are seeing a lot of that. So I shudder to think that what would it look like if libertarians?
So there's another guy who wanted to be left alone in the woods, and that was Ted Kaczynski. No, I'm just kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. Well, and so actually, that's actually one of my life goals, is to have a cabin in the woods.
It's to be Ted Kaczynski.
No. I want a cabin in the woods. I was reading. Have you ever heard of Henry David Thoreau?
Yes, I've heard of the name, but I am blanking on it.
He wrote a book called Walden, and what he did is for 2 years he built a cabin out in the middle of the woods. He was friends with Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he built this cabin in the woods, and he wanted to be kind of self-reliant. And on the weekends, he'd go visit this cabin in the woods. And he was instrumental in talking about John Brown, 15 years before the Civil War. He was talking about John Brown, and he realized that if he sat alone in solitude, he could really try to solve a lot of the world's problems. He wrote a book, you probably heard of it, Civil Disobedience. And those essays would later basically change how people start viewing activism and politics. So it's okay to want to separate yourself. And, I want limited government. You want the government off your back and out of your pocket, right? That's it. But sometimes, if there is a system that's there, you don't want to overthrow it. Sometimes it's good to, change comes from within.
I don't want a government that is going to, it's inevitable. I don't want a government that calls evil things good and good things evil.
Yeah.
That's what I don't want my government to do. And then you've got to answer the question. Well, how do you decide what's evil and what's good, right?
Well, it's subjective. It's who's being
asked
the question,
right?
I would argue that's why you go back to theology.
That's exactly right.
Yes, but if you're not of a theologian, a mentality there, if you believe the Bible is a fairy tale, then
I get that. That's the rub.
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting that our forefathers were not sitting around writing the First Amendment thinking it was going to give pornographers the right to distribute pornography.
Completely agree.
They weren't thinking that way, and so in many cases, when people say we have to go back to the founding, for a lot of Americans, It would feel like a complete revolution if we did that.
So, and this goes back to the interconnectedness of everything. I had a reputable attorney told me once. He said, in order to understand contract law, you have to understand bankruptcy law. In order to understand bankruptcy law, you have to understand constitutional law. In order to understand constitutional law, you have to understand it. And it just keeps going. Mm-hmm. And eventually the answer is, well, what's the all-encompassing? It's the Ten Commandments. It's God. It's the Old Testament. It's the New Testament. And the problem is that we've lost that. And, that's one of the problems I have with someone like Ayn Rand. You can't be objective. You can't be objective on your own. I'm sorry. You cannot be an objectivist in your own world without having God come into it. It doesn't work.
Well, that's I would agree. I had an Ayn Rand liking for a long time. Atlas Shrugged. I remember all that. Yeah. But then when I read her objective philosophy, I was like, oh, nope. That totally contradicts what the Bible says in at least 3 of the 5
actually,
points, I think.
Speaking of greed, her book is The Virtue of Greed.
It is The Virtue of Greed. Okay, everybody, we have spent, by the way, Seth Connell, this is great. We've got about 12 minutes left, so we're going to try to get into some of the news of the day. Tulsi Gabbard absolutely taking over the White House press briefing yesterday. You may need the headphones now. Absolutely taking over the press briefing earlier today, and CNN couldn't handle the truth.
Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th...
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, continuing on what is...
We've been listening.
Hold on, let me jump in here. Let me get in here.
We've been listening to Tulsi Gabbard spew lies, and so now we're going to cut to something
she's got this baseless claim here, even though we've seen the documents.
It's unbelievable. Their little worlds are being shattered.
Wait, I thought Stephen Colbert was good.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah. Yeah, the vaccine. Remember that? Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. And then we got this clip. This is a reporter specifically asking about, is Obama actually also being referred to the Department of Justice?
Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that.
So the question is, I think we referenced the Civil War earlier. You were referencing Abraham Lincoln. If they were, and historian Larry Schweikert actually says that the Justice Department, they should go after Brennan, Comey, Clapper, and everybody in between. But it'll be so difficult to convict a former president that Trump should just come out and pardon him and forever tarnish his legacy.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so great.
The easiest way to get in front of it is to...
Yeah,
I mean, his legacy's forever tarnished.
Look, we don't want to tear the country apart with Obama's crimes. I want to pardon him.
Right, but all of these intel oligarchs have got to go to jail.
Somebody's got
the country. We don't have a country if they don't put.
There's got to be a perp walk.
And this also goes back to again theology, and you have to understand, Mike. That's the message of Christ. How do you kill your enemy with kindness? And if you're gracious, you own the frame. That's why God's the ultimate frame.
Trump is coming out and he's saying, hey, during the whole thing with Hillary Clinton, when I took office, I said, hey, we're going to lock her up. There were the yard signs. I remember trying to show a house. I'm working in real estate, and I'm showing a house, and one of them had Trump 2016. It was Trump Pence 2016. And then it had right in front of it, it said lock her up. And then it was 2 different signs. And then next door it had Hillary, what was Kane. It was, so it was Clinton Kane, whatever it was. And it said, I'm with her. So it's, I'm with her, lock her up. And it's like, oh, you're going to follow her into jail. I just thought it was hilarious. And both houses were for sale.
Yeah.
And I never did look back to see which one sold first. I didn't know how that was going to work out. But anyway, it was just interesting to see how that all panned out. I have no problem with somebody being a Democrat and voting their beliefs and all of that stuff. That's not how it lines with me. That's totally fine that they believe that stuff. But you cannot support someone, a president, an outgoing president ordering the intelligence community to manufacture documents that state that Trump, the incoming president, is a Russian asset.
Well, here's the play. They're going to say it's not real, it's not real, it's not real.
He's already said it. He already came out and said it.
Right. And then the Democrats are going to flip, and they're going to say it is real and it doesn't matter because both sides right now believe they have moral superiority. And just like we talked about earlier, one side actually does. And so when both sides believe they have moral superiority, somebody's going to have to lose here. Mm-hmm. Somebody loses, and the country is at stake. And I will just say, if the Democrats get back in power, people like you and me are in for a hard rest of our lives, because they're going to. We've seen what they're now
They'll
caught
be
red-handed.
unhinged.
It will be even worse. You talk about arresting grandmas and putting them in jail for praying outside abortion clinics. We're talking about Christians in boxcars because you're a Christian and you believe what the Bible says. Like, that is a very real possibility if they get back in power, and that's why when the Bible also talks about winnowing your enemies, and this they can't miss. If we mess this up, if Trump and them mess this up, it's going to be very difficult.
Just think about it. To your point, Paul, if no heads roll, right? If there are no arrests, if there are no perp walks, if no one goes down for this, the moment the Democrats get back into power, their party gets back into power, what reason would they ever have to pull the reins back at that point?
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Go.
Yes, it's literally. I mean, they're communists.
Well, they're
communists.
Look what they did to try to keep Trump out of office.
Yeah, exactly.
Leading up to 2024, it was throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him.
Yeah.
And then they threw the kitchen sink.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's interesting to look at when you have someone like Donald Trump, who his motivations are, at least we understand what his motivations are. I think that in his last couple of years, he's going to try to do everything that he can to get the housing market up, even if it's artificial.
Amen.
Well, as a realtor,
I don't.
He's a little biased. It's all right.
I don't want it to be artificial. I would love for it to be actual.
If it's artificial.
Yeah.
Well, and that's when we heard that I think he's going to try to get rid of capital gains on houses. I don't think that he's the kind of person that's looking at every policy line one by one. He's just like, get rid of it. And I think that's probably going to happen, which, again, being mayor of Fairfield Bay, that's going to be great.
Well, conversely, what Joe Biden introduced, he wanted capital gains to go from 25% or roughly 25% up to 50%, which would have totally bankrupted in all investments, in my opinion. I don't think that it would have ever gotten passed. But then they also wanted this ridiculousness of taxing unrealized gains.
It's crazy.
So you've got this stock that's doing really, really well.
My house.
Right? And it shows that you're worth, your stock has gone up, it's doubled in value over the last few years. We saw just these record gains in the stock market. And it's like, all right, okay, cool. You're going to pay taxes on that. Although we know that stocks may go right back down. So,
again, this goes back to, you have to understand monetary policy to really understand what's going on here. And you have to understand that, markets, if you ever read Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, he says there's an invisible hand behind the economy. And that invisible hand is supposedly, helping us make good decisions, and prices are always right. It's not quite true. When you understand, okay, let's say I have a potato, and I have all the potatoes, and I'm selling the potato, and I say to you, I was like, hey, would you like to buy the potato? It's $100. And you don't buy it, and you say, no, I'm not paying $100. It's only worth $1. But I have all the money, and you only have $1. You can't decide whether that potato is only worth $1 or not. I make the market because I have all the money and I have all the potatoes. That's how that works. The markets as we know it are really a hand on monetary policy by the government, and they get to decide a little bit whether or not we get to play by the rules that they make up. So when you have someone like Biden who's trying to tax everything that we have, you have to understand that that's an intentional form of aggression on private landowners or whatever. So yeah.
No, it's very, very complicated. And the more complicated something is, the less people understand it, the more opportunity there is for massive corruption. So, all right.
We've got to end on what the headline is. I've had people texting me what the headline is here.
What's the headline?
Russian intel knew Hillary was prone to a psychotic rage.
All right, here we go. Y'all ready for this?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right.
All right. These are the documents. This is the Permanent Select Committee on House Intelligence. This was created, I believe, in 2020. Just so you know, until today, this was one of the most highly classified documents in the United States of America. Okay, so you got to think, why did they never? And there's a ton of great stuff in here, but specifically with Hillary. Here you go. As of September 2016, the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service had Democratic National Committee information that President Obama and party leaders found the state of Secretary Hillary Clinton's health to be extraordinarily alarming and felt it could have serious negative impact on her election prospects. Her health information was being kept in the strictest secrecy, and even close advisors were not being fully informed. The Russian intelligence service possessed DNC communications that Clinton was suffering from intensified psycho-emotional problems, including uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness. And it's that last one, cheerfulness, that's just like, wow, that's just like even more nuts. Like, I've been angry, but I've never been like, I'm uncontrollably happy and then also angry. That sounds crazy. And also, honestly, it sounds like demonic possession. Anyway, Clinton was placed on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers, and while afraid of losing, she remained obsessed, quote, obsessed with a thirst for power. Now, she also had type 2 diabetes, ischemic heart disease, deep vein thrombosis, chronic obstruction, pulmonary disease, and a partridge in a pear tree.
And they want to talk about Trump's swelling legs here, you know.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Bone spurs.
So I want to get your reaction to all of that, but I want it to, after we play this viral clip from 2016, where when this happened back in the day, I mean, I watched it over and over again, trying to figure out how the leading Democratic presidential nominee would act this way, because it was very, very strange. Watch.
Vice presidential. Did you talk about vice presidential possibilities with Senator Warren?
You guys have got to try the cold chai.
I've had it.
It is delicious.
Okay, so
isn't
there's
it?
actually a better angle of this. I wish, but do you guys remember this? There's another angle. There's another camera over there. So I've picked the wrong video.
Did you ever see her at the DNC?
Yeah, but then you've got the one where they have to. The
leg.
one of the DOC.
Yeah, you've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one was great.
The
That one was
fireworks.
great.
They're so great.
But then there's the one where she has this episode
Walking to the
at the
van.
9/11 memorial, and they
Yes.
literally have to just just push her into the van.
Yeah.
Now, let me just play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Literally devil's advocate, if you, depending on who you talk to. If I'm going to advocate for her. So basically,
Oh, okay. I
you
see
got
what you
that
did
one
there.
here.
Okay.
I had to explain that.
Sorry,
joke.
sorry,
Paul
sorry,
fell
sorry.
flat.
The rest of them got it. I'm just
there you go.
dense.
So if she is suffering from type 2 diabetes, that can, and she was not controlling it well with medication or whatever, she wasn't monitoring it well, that would explain the weak, shaky legs having to be carried into that van. It would explain it, because my best friend's dad, we call him the Godfather, he has type 2 diabetes, and he gets some shaky legs. We go to Cardinals games every year, and sometimes he doesn't control it well, and we're carrying him like that sometimes in or out of Cardinal Stadium, Busch Stadium. So that can explain it. But I like this version better, if that is the case. If it is the case, there it is. Oh, come on, y'all.
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
She's never killed anybody. She's never had anybody killed.
Hey, look. I bought a book on leadership secrets from Hillary Clinton, and I was
Oh,
looking for
Lord.
that chapter on how to write someone else's suicide note.
Yeah.
Too much?
No.
We were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, and how
Yeah.
you after you're dead, you sprinkle some carpet fiber on
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, she's like,
man.
hey, just so you know, I'm going to give you my personal cell phone. That means we're friends. Here's your antidepressants, because apparently everyone around me commits suicide.
Well.
Right? And that's what Hillary's just going to have to do, because I would love to pull up that list someday. It was something like 43 people have committed suicide. I literally know.
Well,
I'm like one person.
I
who's
will be
committed
devil's
suicide.
advocate. You know, there's a lot of Epstein connection cases where it's like, lawyer who worked connected to Jeffrey Epstein. It's like, well, you know, part of me like that.
Well, that's true.
There
Yeah,
is a
you're right.
far-fetched link. I won't.
So many people there.
It's just it's everyone in the government. Oops. Oh man.
Yeah. So.
Well, anyway, that's about all the time. I had a great. I had a great time talking. I know we got off topic from like the most of the show.
Yeah,
for what the headline was.
For 48 minutes of the show was supposed to be 10 minutes of the show.
Well,
so but
yeah,
it's all good.
I know, but we don't. We don't have the third chair here filled.
So glad to have the mayor.
That's
time,
right.
so.
Mr. Mayor.
So it's always great. So Seth, tell us real quick if people listening, because we're on X America News right now, if people want to check out Fairfield Bay, this resort town in Arkansas, I know you would love to invite them to vacation there.
So in fact, Paul, we're inviting you up here.
Yes,
You're going to
it's
be
true.
coming. Hopefully,
I
you
am.
and your wife.
Yeah, I'm going to be there. I am.
You're going to be there. Yeah. There's golf. We have there's golfing. There's fishing.
One of my agents says she plays golf there all the time. So,
Really?
Yeah, she's really humble too. She talks about how really good at golf she is, and she literally texts out, "I'm really good at golf," and I'm like, "Well, that's okay." But this kid is phenomenal at everything that she does, but humbleness may not be one of her.
Well,
strong suits.
they say that the thing about humility is when
Yeah.
you talk about it leaves the room.
Yeah. So anyway, you had the website pulled up. What is that website?
Is this the one? I tried to. Is it arkansas.com/Fairfield Bay, or am I in some tourist trap? I think it.
I think that's it. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Visit Arkansas. Visit FairfieldBay.com
Okay.
is the community club website. FairfieldBayAR.com is the city website. Go to visit FairfieldBay.com. There you go.
Yeah, visit FairfieldBay.com. Yeah, there we go. There it is.
Yeah, vacation
there's-
starts there.
There's
yeah.
vacations.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that lake.
Yeah,
Nice.
let's throw this up there so people can see it.
And
Yeah.
what you can do, and when you come, just be sure to tell everyone your favorite mayor invited you. Your favorite
That's how
mayor.
you introduced yourself.
That is, I did.
Hey, hi, my name is Seth, your favorite mayor.
Before we end this, I want to put this hat on. So
Okay, let's see this.
This is what it's all about right here. I had a hat made, okay,
Uh-huh.
and this is the old Fairfield Bay logo. I grew up with this logo.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is we're doing like this throwback thing. We're giving out hats. I'm actually paid for this out of pocket, and the reason I'm doing this is just because. Everybody likes Fairfield Bay. I was at a golf course going golfing recently, and I saw this logo out in the golf course. It's a great community, and if you come, you're going to enjoy it. It's a wonderful vacation spot. It's affordable, and it's a retirement community.
Nice.
So
Okay.
there you go.
All right, Rob Spencer, thank you so much for being a guest or being the co-host like you always are.
Glad to be here as always, Paul.
Sorry. And Seth, thank you for being our guest. We really appreciate it.
Well,
sir.
I was a great guest, right?
You were.
You were phenomenal. Yep.
All right, Rob and I are going to be back
to be
here
here.
tomorrow, 4:00 Central. No, there is no Millstone Report tomorrow at noon because Rob and I actually have something. We have an engagement
And a luncheon,
together.
yeah.
A luncheon to go
Yep.
to. So, folks, thank you so much for being with us, and don't forget, follow us at at Paul Talk Show, and you've seen this. Well, the scrolling. You can go to paultalkshow.substack.com to subscribe and get your free copy of Left Wing Will and The Red Pill. That is all the time that we have, and we'll see you tomorrow.